Welcome to Technique Tuesday. We're starting a new series called 5-Minute Bible Study. And the goal is that if you follow along with this, you will know how to study a whole entire book of the Bible yourself. And you'll know how to study it very, very well. But we're going to do the book of Colossians. But before we just jump into Colossians and start reading it, there's something that you need to do before you can understand the book well and understand what the author is talking about. And that is, number one, first thing we need to do, we need to understand the background of why the book was written. What is the purpose of this book? What was going on that the author needed to write this book for? Why are these people being told to do what they're doing? This will help us understand what the book is saying and apply it to our lives better. Imagine the reason we do this is because we need to understand why. So imagine you're in a group text with your friends and you can't get to it. You're working, so you can't get to it till later. But by the time you're in it, there's all these conversations, all these jokes, and there's commands. So they're like, hey, make sure you go buy a bag of chips, and make sure you bring a blanket. Make sure you bring some chairs. And you're like, why are you telling me to do these things? And what you need to do to understand why and to understand where to bring the chair to understand a lot of things is you need to go all the way back up to the beginning of the messages and understand, okay, why did this start? Oh, we're gonna have a party at the park. This is a stupid example, but the point is that if you want to understand why you're being told to do what you're doing and why this conversation is happening in the first place, you need to go back to the beginning and figure out the purpose for the letter. And the same is true with the Bible. So what we're going to do with Colossians is we're going to not just start in the conversation, but we're going to figure out why the conversation started in the first place. And once we do that, we can get into the conversation and see what God is telling us to do in our lives today. And the way we do that, the way we find what the background is, how the conversation started, is first, you read through the book really quick, kind of skim it and see if the author says anything like, hey, this is why I'm writing to you. That is so important. You need to find that. Also, once you find that, so first off, read it yourself real slow all the way through. Secondly, once you find that, you can go to websites like Blue Letter Bible and also commentaries like this one I have that I'll be reading from today. And you can figure out for yourself from the book and also from people who've studied and written books about it, why was this book written? Why did this conversation start in the first place? And you need to understand why. Why did it start? Because once you understand why, you understand better what you're supposed to do in your life today. So let's get started and see how this goes. I've only got about 2 more minutes, so I gotta go quick. But once I read through the whole entire book really quick in this little Colossians booklet, I made a couple notes to myself, personal notes. And the first one is in chapter 2, verse 1. I didn't see anything about why the book was written until 2:1. And then he says that he's writing to the church of Colossae and Laodicea. So I was like, okay, I know who he's writing to. And then in 2 verses 2-3, he says that the number one purpose of why I'm writing this is to encourage and knit together believers through the understanding of the mystery and treasures of Christ. And then he says in verse 2-4, the second purpose of me doing this is to fight against good sounding arguments, but wrong arguments about how to live well and to show you how to actually live well through keeping Christ first and through good doctrine. So that's kind of what I see just from my first read. And this is the way he tells you, just read through quickly by yourself and see what the book says about why it was written. So now I'm going to read a commentary, or you can go to Google Blue Letter Bible and search, why was Colossians written? And this is just to make sure that you're not wrong. You read the book yourself, but you want to make sure that you're not totally off base. So I went to the book and it said basically the same thing, that Colossae had a lot of Near Eastern religions that influenced them, and it was really easy for young converts to go the wrong way in Christianity. So I just read, there's a part in it called The Purpose for the Letter. So I went to that and read that. It took me 2-3 minutes. And basically it just says that Paul's writing this letter to fight against false teachings and make sure that Christ stays as the head of the church. So why is Colossians written? To fight against false teachers and to give the right view of Christ so that they know how to live their Christian lives. That's basically why this whole letter was written. So Colossians was written to fight against false teachers and to give the right view of Christ as head of the church, as head of our religion, and to show how to live as Christians in a world that has all kinds of false ideas. That's all we know for now, and we're going to take those ideas, and that is going to be the filter through which we read everything of this book going forward. We're going to see how what we're reading would fight against wrong ideas of Christ and help us live as Christians. And as you've probably already could tell, this book applies to us even today. There's all kinds of ideas trying to tell us how to live, what's the best way to live, what are the right ideas, what should you follow. And Colossians' message to the church of Colossae and Laodicea and the surrounding areas still applies to us as Christians today. So as we move forward, we're going to learn what it means to have Christ as the head, and to ignore these false ideas and to live as Christians.